Have you ever felt love slip through your fingers like grains of sand? One moment, it is warm and reassuring. The next, it is distant, fading like the last rays of a sunset. Why does love change? Why does the person who once held you close now seem like a stranger? These questions have haunted the hearts of many, but in Zen and Buddhist teachings, impermanence, anicca, is a fundamental truth. Love, like all things, shifts, transforms, and sometimes departs. But how can we recognize the moment when love is truly gone? And more importantly, how do we let it go? When someone loses their love for you, they do not declare it loudly. Instead, they act in subtle, profound ways that reveal the truth. To understand this deeply, let us embark on a journey, a story of love, loss, and the wisdom of letting go. The story of the falling leaves. There was once a traveler, a man of deep thought and quiet nature, who lived his days seeking understanding of the heart. He had known love, felt its warmth, and believed in its eternity. Yet one day, the one he loved, the one who once held his hand with gentle certainty, began to change. At first it was subtle, like the first leaf that falls from a tree before autumn fully arrives. Then the changes became unmistakable. Words became fewer, glances became shorter, and the air between them thickened with the silence of unspoken truths. The traveler found himself standing at the edge of a vast and unfamiliar landscape, no longer certain of his place in the world they had built together. The warmth that once filled their shared moments had cooled, like embers dimming in the ashes of a once bright fire. He would reach for her hand, but the fingers that once intertwined with his now lingered, hesitant, before slipping away. Seeking wisdom, the traveler went to an old monk who lived in the mountains, a man whose presence was like still water, calm, reflective, and full of unseen depths. "Master," the traveler asked, "I fear that love is slipping from my grasp. The one who once walked beside me now walks ahead, indifferent to whether I follow or not. What have I done wrong?" The old monk closed his eyes for a moment, as though listening to the whispering wind, and then spoke. "When love fades, it does not vanish like smoke in the wind. It withdraws like the tide, revealing the shore that was always there. There are two things that people do when they lose their love for you. Watch closely, and you will see." The monk led the traveler to a tree whose golden leaves trembled in the crisp autumn air. "Do you see this tree?" the monk asked. The traveler nodded. The monk reached up and plucked a leaf from a low-hanging branch. He held it gently in his palm, letting the wind carry it away. "Love is like this leaf," the monk said. "At first it clings to the branch, full of life and color. But as the seasons change, so too does its grasp. Love, like the leaves, must one day let go." The traveler watched the leaf dance in the wind, tumbling and twisting before settling softly upon the ground. A thought stirred within him, a realization not yet fully formed. The first sign, they withhold their presence. The monk took the traveler to a small garden where a tree stood tall, its branches wide, providing shade. A young bird rested in the tree, chirping happily. "Do you see this bird?" the monk asked. The traveler nodded. "Now watch." The monk gently waved his hand, and the bird, sensing the disturbance, flew away. "Love," the monk said, "is like this bird. When it is comfortable, it lingers, singing, making a home in your presence. But when love begins to fade, it will withdraw. Subtly at first, they will no longer sit close to you. Their laughter will not be as free. Their words will no longer flow like a river, but drip like the last drops from an empty jug. This is the first sign. When someone loses their love for you, they withhold their presence, even if their body remains." The traveler frowned. "But why do they not simply tell me? Why this slow withdrawal instead of honesty?" The monk smiled gently. "Because they themselves are still learning the truth. Love does not disappear all at once. It fades like the last ember of a dying fire. A person does not wake up and decide to stop loving. Rather, they realize it as the days pass. Their heart becomes a silent traveler, already walking away while their body remains." The traveler looked around the garden, observing the shadows shifting as the sun moved across the sky. A pang of longing settled deep within him. "So what should one do? Should I chase after them? Should I beg them to stay? The monk shook his head. Would you chase the bird that has flown away? Would you beg the tree to hold on to its falling leaves? The traveler hesitated. The weight of longing pressed against him, urging him to resist what he already knew to be true. But the wind rustled the branches above, and he saw the leaves fall, one by one, without resistance. The monk continued, his voice steady and kind. Love, when freely given, is a gift. When it is taken away, it is a lesson. To chase after it is to fight against the natural course of things. Love that is forced is no longer love. It becomes obligation, duty, or a shadow of what once was. The traveler exhaled slowly. He had spent so long grasping at memories, clinging to moments that had already passed like water slipping through his fingers. He thought of the laughter that once filled their days, the stolen glances, the quiet moments of understanding. They had been real, but they were gone now, and no amount of longing could bring them back. The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. When love withdraws, do not run after it. Instead, honor its passage. Be grateful for what was, accept what is, and make space for what will be. In doing so, you free yourself. And only in freedom can new love, in whatever form, find you again. The traveler sighed, feeling the weight of the monk's words settle in his chest. But he was not yet satisfied. The second sign. They become someone else. The monk led the traveler further into the garden, where a pond lay still and clear, reflecting the sky above. Look into the water, the monk instructed. The traveler bent down and saw his reflection staring back at him. It was familiar, yet somehow different in the shifting ripples. Now observe. The monk picked up a small stone and dropped it into the pond. The water trembled, the reflection shattered, and in its place was a new form, distorted, unfamiliar. When someone loses their love for you, the monk explained, they do not only withdraw their presence, they become someone else. The person who once laughed at your jokes, who once sought your company, will now seem like a stranger. Their face is the same, but their heart is elsewhere. Their words no longer carry warmth. Their touch no longer holds meaning. This is the second sign. The one you knew is gone, replaced by someone different. The traveler clenched his hands. But why? How can love transform a person so much? The monk looked at him with infinite patience. Because love is identity. When one loves, they become intertwined with another, like two trees growing side by side. But when love fades, the roots untangle. They seek a different soil, a different sky. The person you see now is not the person who loved you, for they have shed that skin. You grieve not only for lost love, but for the person they once were. The traveler gazed at the rippling water, his heart aching with the weight of understanding. He thought of the moments they had shared, of the laughter that once rang through the air like music. Now silence stretched between them, vast and unfamiliar. So what should one do when this happens? How does one bear such loss? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The monk dipped his hand into the pond, letting the water run through his fingers. You must let them go, not just their love, but the version of them that you once knew. They have changed, and so must you. The traveler closed his eyes, the monk's words settling into the deepest chambers of his soul. He had been holding on to a memory, a version of a person that no longer existed. But clinging to the past would not bring them back. It would only tether him to an illusion. The monk stood and gestured toward the path ahead. You are not the same traveler who first came to me. You too have changed. And so you must walk forward, embracing what is, rather than mourning what was. The traveler inhaled deeply, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs. He looked at his reflection once more, but this time he did not see loss. He saw transformation. He nodded, turning away from the pond, ready to step forward into whatever awaited him next. The path forward, embracing change and letting go. The traveler inhaled deeply, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs. He looked at his reflection once more, but this time he did not see loss. He saw transformation. The person he had loved had changed, but so had he. To cling to what was would be to deny himself the opportunity to grow. The monk watched him for a moment, then spoke. To grieve love is natural, But to resist change is to suffer needlessly. Love is not something to own. It is something to experience. When it goes, do not hold it back. Honor its passage and allow space for something new. The traveler nodded, turning away from the pond, ready to step forward into whatever awaited him next. Perhaps you too have felt the loss of love. Perhaps you have watched someone withdraw their presence or change into a stranger before your eyes. But remember, love is not meant to be a chain. It is meant to be a lesson, a gift, and sometimes a fleeting moment. If this story resonated with you, there is more wisdom to explore. Stay with us, watch our next video, and continue this journey of understanding together.